Okay. So, Sophie, what do we got for agenda stuff?
Okay, so we have a few on-table items that are in your agenda package. These are related to items that were already on the agenda, so just attachments to go with them. Item 6.1B, a letter from a member of the public. 7.1A, which is an attachment to the Smart Cities Challenge discussion. And item 10.3A through Q, which are letters from the public regarding Defend the Island Forests.
Okay.
Also, I believe item 5.1 was going to be deferred. 6. I have a couple items that are going to be deferred.
5.1?
Yeah.
Is that the MOU?
Yes.
Yeah, we're deferring that as it's received input from both our CFO and Councillor Morrison. It will be on the next agenda. And then I think the other item that we're 5.1, 6.2, we're also deferring, which is bylaw number 445. And then I think, Mr. Mayor, you were also talking about 9.1.
9.1, is that it? Yes, 9.1 we are deferring as well. Are we deferring?
Or we're going to discuss it in the next passage.
No. Defer it or kill it.
I think if we kill it, then we should leave it on the agenda.
Okay, let's defer it.
We'll defer it till the
Oh, yeah,
report comes forward.
it's deferring it pending a report, that's it.
So is it deferred then? Pending the report from staff?
Yeah.
When Daniel makes his report on the public.
9.1.
Yeah, and that report will come when we are considering the second reading of the bylaw. That's right. Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Process is not my strong point, okay? Okay. Any other additions, changes to the agenda?
Move to adopt. Move to adopt. Second.
Okay,
As amended, second.
and all in favor? And that is passed. So, we have public comment. Anybody want to comment to us tonight, Sophie?
I don't have anyone on the speakers list.
Okay,
Unless
so then we move on to the consent agenda. Anybody have anything they want pulled from the consent agenda? No? Motion to adopt the consent agenda. Seconded. All in favor? Hey, hey! It's a record.
Wow.
That's pretty cool, eh? Yeah, we have. Well, we only had 10 items. That's hardly any.
Oh, hang on.
Oh, no, too late. So-
I had pulled something from the last one, and I was expecting it to be in the, never mind, I'll ask a question on it because it's not on minutes, I'm putting a question.
So, we have a delegation from BC Health Services. Come on down.
Another chair there.
Where would you like us?
Right
Right here.
Pull up some chairs and-
And we'll open up the chair. Thank you for having us. Oh, great. No, thank you guys. Well, great. He's really good with these things. Some smirtle sort of things.
I got a button to press. Your Worship, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Keith Tyler. I'm one of the community paramedics here on Bowen, and I believe you know this fine young lady.
My name is Janice Trulep, and I'm also a community paramedic here on Bowen.
And we thank you for your time this evening. We'd just like to take a few moments to introduce you to the community paramedic program here on Bowen. There's a few things that we're going to run through. We're going to give you an overview of the programs, how it fits in provincially. We're going to talk to you a little bit about how we help patients. And then we're going to give you a chance to ask questions, because listening to me all evening is hard work. The idea with Community Paramedic in British Columbia is to improve the access, particularly in rural and remote communities, for patients who would otherwise not be able to receive services. It gives us the opportunity to expand the role of paramedics as we're a growing profession and we're looking to spread our wings in the wider healthcare system. And it's also going to allow us to work in partnership with other healthcare providers so that we can actually dovetail neatly into the healthcare system as opposed to being an add-on. As you can see, we are working with lots of different stakeholders and partners. We've got, as you can see from the list up there, complete buy-in across the province from all the major health authorities, including First Nations. We've got UBCM approval, and we've also got union backing. So we've got all the bases on this one covered. And in no particular order, the objectives of this programme are twofold. One is to stabilise the staffing of paramedic vehicles in the community. As I'm sure you're aware, most rural paramedics in British Columbia get paid on an on-call basis. This role is a regular part-time role, so it allows us some stability in our wages, so that we can then move on to do other work. It also means we can bridge the gap. There's a number of patients, and I'm sure we could all name various people on the island, who fall through some of the gaps in the system as it is. And one of the founding principles of our paramedic programme is to be a net to catch people that fall through those steps.
And I'm one of the examples of rural retention. This program has allowed me to stay where I live and love, and to help the people, my community, our community as well. It means I don't have to work the gas station and the undercurrent and do all these things. Right? I still can if I want to, but this allows me a nice, stable 20-hour-a-week position, and then I can do with what I wish with the other hours, which is usually still on-car emergency, helping the community here too. So it's really great for those communities. It means I don't have to leave Bowen Island. So that to me is very important.
And I need to push a button for you.
So community health promotion and awareness is another, once we get rolling, so to speak, in this program, what's going to be very, very big for us, which is, again, we're a different animal to the emergency health services on Bowen Island. We are out there we get invited by Lifesavers, Amanda Auckland, and all her fine work that she does with CPR training, AED training, the Rotary. We can create our own events, which we will be doing. And again, spread the word, invite us to your events, and we'll be happy to pitch in and help and guide and be there, because it's also giving everyone the tools to, feel more comfortable with the emergency healthcare system, and also with general healthcare on Bowen Island. If it's going into the schools and talking about the lunch programs, if it's helping out, like I said, with the AED programs or anything, it's just helping put the net over all of us and keeping us all together. So there'll be blood pressure clinics, there'll be lots of things. So keep your ears and eyes peeled, because there's lots coming down the pipes once we get rolling. So. And as we talked about, we've already done a few of the community health, not specific clinics as yet, they will be coming, but we were at, it was community safety event with Amanda, for instance, so we were there backing up and doing demonstrations with the CPR, and just bringing it down to the real, sort of very tangible elements of, for instance, first responders, CPR versus, whoever gets there first, and this is how you do it, taking the fear away. So we're on the ground, and we're able to help Amanda do that. We respect that she is the leader of AED and CPR on Bowen Island. She is the queen to go to. So she's wonderful and wants to work with us, and we'll be backing her up in a lot of those sort of programs as well.
So one of the other things that we will be doing, working with the primary care team, is we will be doing home visits. So this will give us an opportunity, working under the auspices of the GPs and the home health care team, we'll be able to provide an additional level of service to go in and help people primarily with their chronic diseases, so things like COPD, chronic heart failure, diabetes, and our goal is to provide a short-term intervention for probably up to about 3 months, where we can help them with their self-management. So these are people that are going to live with these conditions for the rest of their lives, so they're the ones that need to manage it. We're just going to be there as a little support while they learn how they're going to manage their condition. And if things change in their condition and they need a little bit of support in a few months or a few years' time, we can be there to do that as well. But again, the focus is on getting them to manage their own condition rather than us taking over from them. So we're a partner. Please don't trip on the toys on the stairs, that's bad.
Yes. So we can just also talk about how we help the patients, and as Keith said, we can go into the home for regularly scheduled visits. The best part is they are of no cost to the patient or the client. We are going to be helping patients stay connected with their family doctor or nurse practitioner. Very different again from emergency health services, pull their cards to the chest because they're a little bit different. This way it's open, we will be meeting with the GPs, massage therapists, physiotherapists, anybody that's involved with that client or that patient, and it's open concept talking, sharing information about that one patient. They are our primary focus, right? It's not all fragmented and, gee, I heard so-and-so went to the hospital, last week and I didn't find out until today. Well, we can actually go to a client's home, and if we have concerns at the time, we can pick up the phone and call their GP right away for some more direction. So that's going to be a huge advantage as well. And as Keith said, supporting patients and managing their health so they can continue to live at home safely. I don't know of anyone who's grown up or have lived quite a while in Bowen Island that really does want to leave. As we all know, most people leave because their kids have to go to high school and it's a drag to the bus. But people live here and love it here and they want to stay here. And if it's like, but healthcare, right? Oh my gosh, the doctor's open these hours and what if? What if? Well, we're here to help everybody else in the community who helps these people, help with the what ifs. And again, help them understand that there are other resources out there. And with the Caring Circle and wonderful resources like that, we can all pool together and they can realize, I don't have to be frightened to be home alone and not know what to do. We're going to help them realize what they can do to stay in their homes as long as they can. And another big thing, of course, too, is checking with patients about their medications as well. Whether it be he's suggesting they go to the pharmacist for a medication review because they're confused, or show me actually that you can take that tablet right there. And then you notice they can't actually open the bottle. Little things like that. That's why they're not compliant. That's why they're not feeling well. We're here to try and figure these things out as well and work with them. So it's going to be, it's a huge scope, including fall risk assessments and things like that as well. So there's lots to do.
Okay. Janice has covered all of those pieces nicely, so I don't think I need to go over them again. Just a little bit about how the communities for this programme were selected. So we are community 76 out of 80 within the province. And the communities were defined as rural, small, rural or remote, as by the policy framework up there. They had to be communities that were served by an existing ambulance station. We're very lucky, we've got 24/7 coverage here, so that's good. And it's there for ambulance stations with casual staff only. So remember, as I said, it's primarily aimed at helping stabilise the paramedic population. And to do that with somewhere where they've already got full-time staff would be a waste of time. So we've picked the stations very carefully. There's a very big, busy slide there, which is a terrible thing for a PowerPoint slide. But you can see that we come under the Vancouver, down towards the end there, we come under the Vancouver Coastal Health Authority heading. As you can see, we've started and established many places in the northern and interior regions, and a lot up and down the island. So we've got partners that we're able to call on and say, okay, what did you do when you were starting up? Because we're about 3 years into this program so far, so we've got some experienced people that we can call on to get their ideas. That was the schedule for the rollout. To know that we're towards the end of the current phase of the rollout, there's still a couple of places still to go. Lots of people that were consulted with when we decided what we were actually going to be doing, rather than just diving in and getting started. And we need to give thanks to all those people, especially the First Nations Health Authority, who were very instrumental in helping us in many areas across the province.
Yes. Another thing is we are not a transport unit. We are not considered an ambulance per se. We are a different animal from the 24/7 crew that we have on call at all times. 24/7 hospitality, the same. Anyway, so very, very rarely, very occasionally, we could be called to respond to a life and death situation if we're not with a client, if the other crew is busy and they can't get away from their critical patient. So we're not like, oh great, a second ambulance. Yes, we have everything on board practically that the ambulance does, so that when we walk into a client's home, oh my goodness, what if we need to use that stuff? We have it. We can call the ambulance to come and take that person to the hospital too. So we can be deployed very, very rarely. So it's not like we're going to be taken away from everybody's calls because, oh, there's a second call that's come in. So it's just a very, very slim chance that will happen.
Just to let you know, this is a pilot program. We do have multi-year funding and continuous funding for this program, but we will be undergoing a review cycle over the 2015 to 2019 period to establish what it is that we've actually been able to achieve as the community paramedic program and the areas where we want to further improve the service that we can deliver. And community paramedicine looks a little bit different in every community, because every community's got slightly different needs, and they've given us the ability to tailor what we do to our community rather than going with the traditional cookie cutter approach. So we're very pleased to have that flexibility. So we have now thrown a tremendous amount of information at you in a short period of time. We thank you very
Now
much.
there'll be a quiz.
Yeah, a celebration of learning. But we do thank you for your time, and at this point we'd like to invite any questions that you may have for us.
Maureen?
I'm curious about how the program will be evaluated. You said you're going into a period of evaluation. Do you know?
I'm going to defer to my when in doubt, defer to my manager. So Cherie Hayder is our district manager for the coastal regions.
Hi.
Hi there. So what they've been doing at this point statistically is they look at, one of our objectives is to decrease the calls of frequent callers, but friendly faces. And so what they, so that's one of the statistics. How frequently did they call before they had a community paramedic engagement? How many times after? I mean, that's one simple statistic. They're looking at overall with the patients that they have been sent to. So caseload is 8 to 13 patients at most.
Generally speaking,
yes. Each of them. So before, again, how much time was spent, and then this is the healthcare authorities, so it's a money cost, right? How much time were they spending in hospitals? And after the engagement with community paramedics, they want to evaluate how much time were they spending in hospitals after. So again, it's looking at the financial comparison of, is there a benefit in the sense of money, budgetary, but also lifespan. They're looking at, was there a quality of life, so that's more subjective from the GPs and the different healthcare authorities, teams, home care. Does the patient seem to thrive better? So that's more anecdotal comments. So there's different components that we have looked at. And we do have a mini report we have already done, and if you like, I can always forward that.
Good.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Yeah, how are you dispatched? Are you just given a list of people? It can be phone you direct? Or
So
is it done
the
through
initial
postal?
referral must come from the patient or client's primary healthcare provider.
Okay.
So if you're visiting so-and-so and you're like, wow, she's really not doing too well. Hey, I bet the community paramedics would it'd be perfect fit. You could call her doctor, she could call her doctor, or anyone else that's looking at her could call her doctor, and it can be a referral system that way. So she can't call us up at the station and say, hey, can you come over and check me out, nor can you. You can certainly talk to us about it and we'll guide you, but it does have to come from the patient's primary health care provider through the system. And the great part is, let's say it is the doctor, we then take literally the findings of the day and we walk it into the doctor's office that day. So it's immediate.
Oh, perfect, yeah.
There's no, 2 months down the road, they finally get the report. So it's going to be very efficient that way.
Great service. Are you busy?
We will be. They haven't cut the umbilical cord yet.
Oh, okay.
They haven't freed us on the
Okay.
community yet.
Yeah.
So we're currently just winding up the last leg of our training, which is shadowing healthcare practitioners. So, for me to say, yeah, why don't you go see, who is your OT or whatever? It's like, well, what does the OT actually do? Well, I can't just, how do I know unless I go and observe the OT? And the OT can ask me a bunch of questions too, and Keith. So we're chasing people around,
We
they're
are,
chasing us.
we are learning at the feet of masters.
Yes, we are. Absolutely.
Very tactful.
So we're painting the whole picture before we get going.
Well, congratulations and thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
great.
you.
Thanks
It's
for
been
that.
wonderful community support for sure.
So follow up to Gary, what about the community health nurse? Can they refer
Yes.
people too? So, because I'm thinking there's probably some people on the island that don't necessarily have a primary care.
Correct.
And the other is, you mentioned you sort of walk the results down to the doctor's office. What are you gonna do with the doctors that are not on Bowen?
Nothing's gonna go by email, nothing will go
Healthcare structure to make sure we get that information.
Yeah.
The Division of Family Practice here on the North Shore, and it's Monday today. Tomorrow night at their monthly meeting, they're having another presentation about the community paramedic service, so that we've already linked up with the local general practitioners, but so that every practitioner on the North Shore, because we know not everybody has a GP here on the island or in Horseshoe Bay, so every GP on the North Shore will know A, what it is that we can do, and B, how to refer patients to us. So,
And I guess another issue that I hear comes up is, and I know it's happened with a family member, dressing changes and stuff after surgery. Is that something you guys can do, or does that still have to be done?
That's not currently our scope of
typically that
practice.
would still be done by the community health nurse, because it's not really a self-management or a chronic disease problem, so it doesn't really fit within our mandate. Down the road that may change, and I think one of the things that we'll probably see with the programme evaluation is that's an area we need to move into, but I'm prejudging the results before we've got them.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, and just to top that off, we work within our primary care paramedic with IV endorsement scope of practice. So we are bound to that, and we stick to that. So that is currently our box within which the tools lie. So.
Right.
Okay, great.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
you so much.
Very informative and welcome, and nice to have you here.
Yeah.
Hope it all works out
Nice to
really,
stay
really well.
here.
Great, thank you. Okay. So, just in case anybody has come to listen to the discussion on the docks bylaw for Cape Roger Curtis, we have deferred that. It will not be discussed at tonight's meeting. Okay, so please don't sit here all evening waiting for us to talk about it. My apologies. Well, except that it's going to be so much better.
And we also deferred 5.1, right?
Well, yeah, we're getting to that. Oh. Okay. So anybody who has come to listen to us talk about the joint service agreement with the community center, we have deferred that one as well. Okay. So moving right along, we're gonna, Judy, come on down.
And did we defer 5.1 as well?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
Yes,
He just advised.
that's the rec center. Or the
Memorandum.
community center project.
Community center, okay. Rec center, but we should be allowed.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Well, that's a bad thing to say, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm not on that committee anymore. Now we know why. Sorry, Judy, carry on.
Good evening. The report before you tonight is a report back. As you will recall, on February 13th, you had a delegation from the Bowen Island Health Center Foundation.
Sorry, Judy. Okay, thank you. Carry on.
Undertaking to provide primary health care by way of the healthcare clinic on Bowen Island. And the to focused on Lot 3 of the community lands, and the request was that in addition to providing land, that fees be waived and that the site essentially be serviced and provided for development of the healthcare center. So at that time, council passed a resolution to support the matter in principle, and this is the location actually that is recommended. That this is Miller Road, Lot 3. This is the site for the proposed fire hall. This is the site that has been requested, which is 109 feet of frontage on Miller Road, and it's a site of about 0.2 or about a half of an acre. And council had asked that we report back with specifics as to what actually those costs might be. And also following up from the council resolution of February 13th, where council agreed in principle to allocating such land. In subsequent conversation with the CRA, members of the foundation have been told by the CRA that in principle just isn't quite good enough for the CRA to grant charitable tax status, that they've required a more firm commitment based on actually having land available. Their concern is that if there isn't an actual project, the concern is that funds would be raised for a project that wasn't an actual project that would be prepared to go ahead. So an understandable concern, but at this point they wanted a bit more assurance that the municipality was in support and would make land available for the project. So this report outlines some of the steps that could be undertaken to provide a long-term lease of land for the purpose of moving forward with a community health clinic, and what those actual, the impact of those costs and charges would be, and also talks about site plan options and some other requirements. So in looking at the property in question, the first thing that would probably need to be undertaken is that the property is now zoned to village commercial. It's a zoning that provides for offices, but there is also a zone in the bylaw that provides for medical clinics, which is really the proposed use for this property. So in order to make sure that everything is clean and tidy and the most appropriate use for the intended use of the site, it would be recommended that if the property was to be zoned, the municipality could initiate its own text amendment, and it would be a pretty simple process just to add medical clinic as a proposed use to the DC1 zone in the bylaw. We would also need to create a parcel to lease. The Local Government Act requires that for any lease of a property for a period of more than 3 years, it needs to go through a subdivision. So there are a couple of options. We could create a leasehold subdivision, which is pretty much just a subdivision the way any other subdivision is, except it's a leased parcel rather than a freehold parcel. Or in discussion with Chris Murdy, the conversation was that we could actually create a subdivision that would be in the interest of the municipality, which would create a parcel that would be the fire hall parcel. The parcel in between could be a parcel created as a freehold parcel that could subsequently be leased to an entity, and then it would leave an almost 2-acre parcel to the south of it that can be used by the municipality for purposes yet to be determined. And this was considered to be a much cleaner option, just to create a parcel that can be leased to whomever. If things don't go ahead, the parcel can easily be reconsolidated into the larger parcel, or it can be leased or sold for other purposes. The application would need a development permit. It would also need to provide notice of providing assistance. Anytime we're providing an entity, the municipality would be required to give notice under the provisions of the legislation. And then moving forward with how to actually lease the property, the notion would be that we could enter into an agreement to lease as a step that may be a more suitable alternative to the CRA rather than an agreement in principle. So that would be an actual agreement that if the CRA was prepared to grant charitable status, we would actually enter into a process which would be an agreement to lease where we would iron out all of the details. And as my little character there does reiterate, it is a chicken and egg situation. The CRA doesn't want to give charitable status unless there's land, but the municipality also has to be very cautious in giving up land if there's not an actual process available. So the agreement to lease would be a step where we would actually go through all of the details of the roles and responsibilities of the municipality and the foundation and any other parties that would be privy to this, to set out those responsibilities, to determine what kind of time frame we would hold a property for before a project could be completed and come forward, assurances that it would be used for the intended purpose, agreement in terms of who would look after the maintenance of the property and the furnishings and fixtures, who would ensure the programming, including the community programming, whether the municipality could use some of the community space for our own programs, and also the disposition of the revenues. If there are leases available, would there be funds coming back to the municipality over time? So there's a whole range of matters that would have to be worked out before an actual lease agreement would be entered into. In terms of the costs, and that's a little bit hard to read there, but a rezoning is about $3,600. If we take it on as a text amendment, it's a pretty straightforward and easy process. The subdivision would be in the range of $1,000, but again, the municipality would gain some benefit by gaining 3 pieces of municipal property, and I think if that's something that council wants to proceed with, that would be an efficient way to go about it. The survey costs are usually something that need to be factored in. The surveyor I've spoken to the surveyor who actually has already done the survey work for the fire hall site, and the pins are pretty much in place, so he's advised that he could pretty much do the whole subdivision for about $2,000, including registration documents. So that I think is a pretty reasonable deal. There would be about $500 in filing costs, development permit charges. The larger ticket items tend to be the servicing costs. The servicing is already pretty much to the door along Miller Road in terms of the water and sewer services. So to get services to actually the doorstep is pretty easy. The latecomer charges that the Public Works Department is calculating in terms of what we would charge anyone else who came along for a lot along there would be approximately $20,000 for the water hookup and about $10,000 for the sewer hookup. So those are fees that the utilities would need to forego if those fees were waived. Again, there would be other legal fees and so on in terms of the preparation of the lease and all of the negotiations which are yet to be determined. As I said, these cost estimates would take sewer and water to the property line, not to the building, so everything else would be a development cost. There is the little matter of the kind of somehow unknown location of the septic field for the library, which is probably mostly on the fire hall site, but partially perhaps there are a couple of fields there, maybe on this site. So the cost of removing those and getting the sewer hookup from the library over to Miller Road is a cost that will have to be borne somewhere along the line. And it's just a matter of who will have to accommodate that. Again, these costs don't account for the opportunity cost that there is a piece of municipal property that would not be sold, but would be provided for this community purpose. Any of the ongoing costs, the revenues from the facility, the costs of paying for utilities and taxes and so on, I think are things that would all have to be worked out through that agreement to lease. One of the other issues is that The site that has been identified by the foundation, the 109 feet of frontage along Miller Road, actually encroach into the temporary municipal parking lot. And if you see the yellow little line here, it kind of comes down to about there. And this is then looking the other way from Miller Road in, so these parking spaces are ones that would be as part of the new community center, or clinic development site. So this is something that, again, is just in the mix in terms of whether the municipality or whether council would want to have those spaces replaced as part of the process, or whether as temporary spaces they would be dispensable or somehow integrated into the site. Bob Robinson has said that to replace them with an equal number of spaces would be in the neighborhood of about a $10,000 cost on the site. I was asked to look at some site plan options, and the applicant had Salal Architecture do a few options. We've looked at them, planning, public works, the fire chief has had a look at them. And just a few of the points that have been brought out is that the fire chief is really not very keen on any option that would have shared access with the fire hall site for a number of reasons. Mainly that it's a one-way system through this property, and also just concerned with blocking during emergencies and so on. A couple of the options show the building at the front of the site. They've shown some one-story and some two-story options. The two-story obviously with a smaller footprint. While it goes against everything I probably would ever have said, I think that what is looking best is probably a building that is closer to the back of the site, that allows for parking at the front of the property. It allows for an ambulance bay at the front of the property, and it would also allow for the retention of the current driveway in about this location that is into the parking lot, because Bob is quite keen that while the municipal temporary lot is maintained, that there be an ability to retain that flow through here and keep that access open. That may, in the long term, turn out to be less important, but at this point in time, probably a two-story option with the building located closer to the back of the site would be a bit better. It also provides very nice views from the back of the building right directly into the park. So with that, the recommendations before you tonight is that if council is interested in pursuing this and allowing the foundation to go forward with a more pointed letter to the CRA. They are required under their application to get back to the CRA by April 20th with the direction that they want to go in, and they have requested a further letter from council with a commitment to the center. So the recommendations are that if council wishes to proceed, that they confirm that subject to the foundation achieving charitable receiving registration as a charity, that it will enter into an agreement to lease with the foundation for a site that could be up to 2 hectares or half an acre at a nominal rate as a long-term lease, and that fees for the application and the servicing of the site could be waived. And that also council direct staff, should that all happen, to undertake applications to subdivide Lot 3, to work with the foundation to develop an agreement to lease, and also to undertake a text amendment to the VC1 zoning bylaw to regularize the zoning of the property.
Should be the resolution that's in your report is different than what's up here that we have in front of us.
Oh, I didn't, I
Oh,
sort
this is
of,
just paraphrase?
that's the
Yeah.
paraphrase,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, good, good.
I didn't want to do the whole one.
Okay, thank you.
Uh,
Yes, they are.
And the late fee for the water district. So there's no late fee for that.
Joining up.
There's a connection fee, but it's not, that's a different, so I think those numbers might be, we need to think about that.
This is in discussion with the superintendent of public works, and it's related actually to the front-end work for the actual facilities that went in along Miller Road at the time that Snug Cove House went in.
That was the sewer, not the water system.
There's sewer, and then there's also water construction as well. And I think he's still working through the details of the bylaw for the latecomers, but his comments to me were that any subdivision for a private development that went in there, they would be requesting fees, connection fees that would reflect those costs.
Well, I can, yeah, we'll talk about that offline, because I'm not sure that that's.
Don't know that it is in the Cove Bay water. It may not be. There's all kinds of little jigs and jogs there. Remember, Snug Cove House wasn't in Cove Bay water.
Yeah, they are Cove Bay water, they're not Gateway sewer.
You know, remember that to put a well in because they weren't in Cove Bay water? There's all
Okay.
kinds of jigs and jogs in the
Okay,
line. So
well, I know the
That's
firewall's in the boat, so that's why I was
Right.
curious. I'm fairly sure they're in the water.
Okay, yes, Maureen.
I understood the argument that you presented, Judy, and thank you for your report, concerning the advantage to the municipality of having freehold parcels in the area rather than a leasehold subdivision. Is there any benefit to the health center in having freehold parcels rather than leaseholds, or is it a draw?
I really don't think from their perspective there would be a difference having, based on an actual leasehold subdivision. I think the flexibility and the advantage would be to the municipality.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, having had a little careful work done, I'd be actually very happy to propose this recommendation.
Change, I think, we want to make to it, to change the word at approximately to up to at.
And
Up
Yeah,
Up
to,
to 0.2.
Replace the
to
word
approximately
approximately with up to a.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
to provide up to a 0.2 hectare rather than provide an approximate.
and is there a requirement, as far as CRA is concerned, do they care whether we waive the necessary application fees?
From CRA's perspective, my understanding is they are interested in a commitment. The extent of what we decide to do here and waiving fees and so on, I don't think is of interest to them, just a commitment to the property.
I do think, though, it does show the level of commitment to the municipality, and supporting the municipality. Certainly my discussions.
I would agree with these comments.
Okay, well, it seems a little open-ended.
I agree.
Until we're actually negotiating a lease, I'm reluctant to be waiving fees that we don't even know what they are, or how far that might go. Necessary application and site service. Maureen?
Could I suggest then, and to consider waiving the necessary application, etc.?
Or could we be more specific and just say the rezoning subdivision application fees and the DP fees? Because those are the,
Waive, okay, say that again. Waive the subdivision?
to waive the,
If you just say the necessary application fees.
yeah, I think site servicing maybe is the two.
Yeah.
Necessary application fees and charges.
I just say fees.
Fees,
And
yeah.
then delete and charges.
Gotcha.
so let's have a look.
Ellen, Sophie?
Yep.
Okay.
So
Oh, no, never mind about that.
Um,
So it just
So
says-
maybe for the purposes of anybody who's watching, I will move that council confirms that subject to the Bowen Island Health Center Foundation, brackets, the foundation, brackets, receiving registration as a charity pursuant to the Income Tax Act, it is prepared to enter into an agreement to lease with the foundation in order to provide a .2 hectare portion of community land.
Up to.
Up to.
Up to a .2 hectare portion of community lands, Lot 3, to the foundation under a long-term lease at a nominal rate for use as the Bowen Island Health Center and to waive the necessary application fees.
Yes, I second that one.
Are you gonna do this as two?
We did this too.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot it was a book law resolution. And that council authorizes the chief administrative officer to forward a letter to the Canada Revenue Agency advising of this resolution. And that upon receipt of confirmation of registration as a charity council,
Can I
direct
su-
staff.
Sorry, can I suggest that you do that as
Two separate ones. I guess I'd like to see that,
First
please.
paragraph to CRA,
Okay,
and they don't need the second.
So,
Right.
but they need the second one that we authorize you to send.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
put that
right.
all in one resolution.
But they're all in one because that's the authorization.
Okay. all right,
Advising
I'll
of this
stop.
resolution, stop?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so let's deal with that one first, if we may. Do I have a seconder to the
Yeah, Michael,
resolution?
Yeah,
Michael second.
Okay, any discussion before I call the question? All in favor? And that's passed unanimously.
Do you want me to do the next two separately?
So we're gonna start with that upon receipt of confirmation?
Do you want them, can I do two or one?
You can do them as one now, 'cause-
Okay, that upon receipt of confirmation of registration as a charity, that council directs staff to undertake an application for the subdivision as Lot 3 as outlined in this report and to work with the foundation to develop a draft agreement to lease and to report back to council in this regard. And that upon receipt of confirmation of registration, no, I don't think we need those words, council directs staff to initiate a text amendment to the Bowen Island Land Use Bylaw to provide for medical clinic as a permitted use in the BC1-Village Commercial 1 zone.
Second.
Okay,
You noticed a few small changes I made to the wording, so
Yes.
okay.
Just a question for Judy. You emphasized in your presentation text amendment. What's the difference between a text amendment and any other kind of amendment?
It's just an amendment that would go in and essentially add the use, maybe check the parking provisions and just put those words into the text of the bylaw.
So
So
it's
it's-
simple.
It should be.
Okay.
That's what text
I never
means.
guarantee.
no matching.
Yeah. Okay, seconder? And any more discussion before I call the question? All in favor? Okay, so that's passed unanimously.
Great.
Okay. I'm not alone, huh? Getting there. Thank you. So Raj, you're the man.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, it's a requirement in the community charter that a 5-year financial plan be adopted, financial plan tax rate bylaw be adopted before the tax rate bylaw, which has to be adopted before May 15th of every year. In terms of the 5-year financial plan that accompanied the report that I wrote to council, main components of that plan which impact resident tax rates were a $69,000 increase in the towards the funding for maintaining and renewing assets, and $282,000 of additional taxation revenue through property taxation required to balance the budget to cover operating expenditures. Essentially, key components contained in the plan, the key capital provisions contained in the plan include the Cove Bay Water Treatment Plant, construction of a new fire hall, community center design, maintenance of roads, a culvert replacement on Miller Road, a replacement of a 5-ton plow, Cardina Road widening, and Village Drive intersection upgrade. There was a request for to replace the pumper fire truck, which has been pushed to a later year, so that's been removed from the current year. And just in terms of impacts to residents from the financial plan, a residential property owner whose property is assessed at approximately $1,054,000, which is the average value of a Bowen Island property, would experience a $157 increase in annual taxes over last year. In terms of public consultation on the 5-year financial plan, a copy of detailed information included in the 5-year financial plan, which was comprised of summarized financial schedules, departmental operations, a description of departmental operations and expenditures of each department, description and cost of all the planned capital projects, an executive summary of the plan, and other budget information such as community profile, council strategic initiatives, or priorities rather, and a description of the budget planning process were posted on our website and also made available by hard copy. We held 2 open budget house consultations, and public comments were also submitted and have been included in the report to council. And essentially I've just summarized my report here, and I will open or up to any questions. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on the 5-year financial plan proposed.
Okay. We hate talking about money, you know that. Do you have any questions for us?
Pardon?
Just ask if anyone has any questions. Any further discussion on it? Well, in that case, the recommendation is that bylaw number 457, 2018, cited as Bowen Island Municipality bylaw number 47, 2018, 2018 5-year financial plan bylaw be read a first, second, and third time. I will move that as seconder. And any discussion before I call the question? All in favor? Okay, that is passed unanimously.
Could I please take a moment to thank Raj? He started with us on February 5th.
Yeah.
And he has done a stellar job in getting this budget together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I encourage thank staff for all their cooperation in helping make it possible to put it together.
So are you going to see your wife this weekend?
Last week. He's been working the long days.
Thank you, Raj. Okay, next up, we have, so the water general bylaw is not being,
We're on
is no longer on it.
7.1.
Councillor Mason reads, Smart Cities Challenge proposal.
So I'm just coming back with more information on how the proposal is going to date. So I attached a short report. And I've also, there's an on-table item as well showing the work that happened over the weekend. We've got a concept in place. Now we're really just wordsmithing and tweaking and bringing it together. So I'm happy to take any questions on it. We're now at about, the application is quite lengthy with about 30 pages. It's quite the in-depth initiative. So
Since you've done more work on it, and this is on table, can you just give us a little summary?
So the most important bit will be the challenge statement, and out of they rate this out of 100 points, and the actual first 50 words is worth 40. So there's been a lot of attention, and it's changed a bit from what was proposed in the report. But again, it's just as we bring this application together, it's just tweaking it so that as the back end of the application comes together, that it's all matching. There's quite specific criteria that you have to meet, and we're just keep tweaking it. So this is the most important bit.
I was just wondering, because we've got some of the members of the public and they don't have this in front of them, could you just read that little couple of sentences?
So we are the Smart Cities Challenge is I'm just going to give a bit of a, it's an open competition to all communities, large and small. It is for innovative ideas. And what we've come up through a lot of public engagement that we did on the public transportation plan and looking through all the
public feedback we've had over the last couple of years, we've come up with this challenge statement, which is, our community will dramatically reduce its high reliance on single occupancy internal combustion vehicles by facilitating a greater array of on-demand, shared, and low or zero carbon mobility options, measurably improving mobility choice and public health and safety, while strengthening community connections, providing additional local economic opportunities, and lowering carbon emissions. So it has to be, the challenge is to solve an impossible problem, or a very challenging problem. So this is what we've come up with. Our hopes are just to get a foot in the door and become a shortlisted community, and that would be $250,000 to progress the idea a little bit further. And if we were successful, the ultimate prize is $5 million. But anyways, it's been a very interesting exercise, and we've got some really great partners. TransLink has been very enthusiastic about it, and we've got 2 private developers who have come on board. So people have been very open to the idea and very enthusiastic. So.
Excellent.
Part of it, though, is we need a letter of support from council in Georgia.
You got it.
Can I ask a question about the resolution?
Certainly.
At the last meeting, which is why we deferred this, I think, there's a document in there that said that the letter of support should clearly demonstrate the commitment of community leadership to the outcome set out in the challenge statement. But we haven't quoted the challenge statement in the resolution, so I don't know how the resolution will indicate that to the granting body.
Well, they're gonna get the challenge.
No.
Could we say that a letter of support, including the challenge statement as of our April 9th meeting, under the mayor's signature, so just insert those 2 little words?
Well, or we could actually include the, is this a moving target, this challenge statement, or is this the final one?
I imagine there'll be some slight tweaking, so I would be hesitant to put it actually as verbatim. It's not going to change in concept or in intent, but there might be a bit of...
To include, including
Well, how about the council endorse the Smart City preliminary proposal and challenge statement as presented at the April 9th meeting? And then a letter of support under the mayor's signature be sent.
Yeah, that works.
Yep.
I'll second that.
Okay, that's moved and seconded.
Sophie, get that?
Any more discussion before I call the question? All in favor? It's passed unanimously.
Doing well.
Okay, so next up is that speculation tax thing. Okay, so we passed a motion saying send a letter, and before I could get the letter out the door, they excluded Bowen Island specifically from it and reduced the amount for BC residents from 2% to half of 1%. So it was a very substantial change to it. So I wasn't comfortable sending out the letter with the terms of the resolution not being, you know, it was a whole different ballgame when we first passed it. Allison made a suggestion, which I don't have in front of me. Do you happen to have it? I thought you might. So we go to the second one down here, right? This is the paragraph?
Yeah.
Okay, Allison's suggestion is, whereas at its meeting of March 26th, Council passed Resolution 18-135, and then the whole resolution, and whereas the Minister of Finance in the afternoon of March 26th announced changes to the proposed speculation tax that exempted Bowen Island, that Council requests that instead a letter be sent to the Minister of Finance under the Mayor's signature advising that Council had passed a resolution on the morning of March 26th, requesting that the Mayor to write to the Minister, requesting that Bowen be exempted from the proposed speculation tax, and thanking the Minister for the announced change to the proposed speculation tax to exempt Bowen Island. So that's one approach.
Could I hear the last bit of that again?
Okay. Requesting and thanking the Minister for the announced change to to the proposed speculation tax to exempt Bowen Island.
The resolution that we passed asked that the province not proceed with the proposed speculation tax, not just that Bowen Island be exempted. The exemption was in the alternative.
Right.
So I want to be clear that our preference was that the province not proceed.
No, I understand that, but, there's a big but, in that you may philosophically disagree with couching an additional property tax in the form of a speculation tax, which is what I think some people felt that was what this thing actually did. But then you're getting into kind of the provincial realm of responsibility and taking a political stance. And that's the thing that I think as a municipality is not overly appropriate unless it really rises to a high level of impact on our community.
But that was the stance that we did take.
No,
That wasn't
I'm not suggesting we
unanimously.
didn't.
So
I think it's worthy of reconsideration
Can
at
I
this point.
speak to?
Yeah, well, I guess that was part of why, just reconsidering the motion, which means after
Rescinding.
reconsider, then you're basically rescinding, which sends a message that maybe we're changing our minds, or maybe we're happy with what, if you wanted to put, I have no problem at all putting in the full motion.
Yeah.
In the letter, I just thought some of you wouldn't want to do that. I'm quite happy to put the whole, if we send the whole motion, the whole original resolution's in there, because the whereas has the whole resolution in the beginning of it.
Yeah, I think it needs to go forward in its entirety.
I agree.
The message being that we really wanted them, so we didn't want to tinker with that legislation. And that the first aim was to get it rescinded. And I think that is what Councillor Morris is trying to get just with. So by putting that in, it's a little lengthy. I can't imagine that anyone's going to be up late night reading this. But I think that actually does get the message home accurately.
Can Sophie get the
I have
resolution
it.
up?
I have it here. Well, this is from the minutes that we passed in the consent agenda.
Oh, I've got the resolution.
That council requests Mayor Skeels to write to the Minister of Finance to requesting that the province not proceed with the announced speculation tax. Alternatively, if the province proceeds with the tax, that Bowen Island municipality be exempted. Passed unanimously.
Yeah, and that's what's right here on 7.2 in our agenda package.
Yeah.
But if we rescind that, we need to send a thank you for doing it, and rather than rescinding it, because I felt, some of us had felt that motion was, we wanted that whole motion to go, that we would just put the whereases in, and we can say, I can change the resolution, give me that kind of resolution. Can you put it up on the screen, Sophie? We could change it to say, the council requests that instead a letter be sent to Minister of Finance advising the council had passed Resolution 18-135
And put the text in.
and put the text in on the morning of March 26th, and thanking the minister for the announced change to the proposed speculation tax, for example. Is that?
Yeah.
Then it's all in there and
I don't
it's
think
clear
we
to
play games.
everybody and we're not changing anything.
No, I just thought that people wouldn't necessarily want
I
to
second
vote the
that.
whole resolution. Just let me find.
Because this is all kind of after the fact.
Yeah. but-
Anyway, and I thought it was, did you catch that, Sophie?
Okay, so are we going with Allison's?
Yeah, we just made a little change to it. Is there any way you can stick it up?
It's on a different.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me read it again then. Whereas at its meeting of March 26th, council passed resolution 18-135, that council requests Mayor Skeels to write the Minister of Finance to requesting, it should have been request, that the province not proceed with the announced speculation tax. Alternatively, if the province proceeds with the tax, the Bowen Island municipality be exempt.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay, and then we could go on and say that council requests that instead a letter be sent to the Minister of Finance under the mayor's signature advising of resolution 18-135, of the above of this, advising of Resolution 18-135, and thanking the minister for the announced change to the proposed speculation tax to exempt Bow Island.
Why don't we just rescind the bloody thing?
Well, then we've got to pass a whole new resolution.
We don't have to.
Yes, we do. We've got
Rescind it
this.
and call it a day. We've
No,
won.
because
Big yes
I
for
want to
an
be on
answer.
record that.
I'd like
That
to-
we were against it.
I would just suggest, your resolution is not something you want to send to the province, right? Because I think it would
Well,
just.
we sent it with the whole whereas
confuse
resolution.
I would suggest if you want to keep it simpler, because all they just want to know is, well, they probably don't want to know anything.
They don't
from
care.
us,
They don't care.
Well, I guess that's partly why I just,
but- Yeah, I
That's
think
the way
if
it
I
was.
was a provincial staff person and I received this resolution, I would be very confused.
so that.
Because they don't need to know that we've rescinded.
No, and you don't usually send them the whereases
Yeah.
when you send a resolution. So the last part is what you would send them.
Yeah.
With all due respect to Mr. Mayor, because Mr. Mayor would, from what I'm hearing, wants to rescind the whole resolution, but if council wants to keep the resolution, I would suggest you keep the first part and rescind the second paragraph of your original resolution.
That's the one alternatively.
Alternatively, if the province proceeds with the tax, rescind that portion of it.
Correct. So it would just read that council requests Mayor Skills to write to the Minister of Finance to request, requesting that the province not proceed with the announced speculation tax. Period.
And thanking the minister for the announced change to the proposed tax for Camp Lone Island. I think we've got to say that. I put the
I'll second
whereas.
that.
Okay, well, dear Sophie is going to be confused. So the whereases were in there to explain why we were doing what we were doing.
Yeah, but they don't need to know.
No, and that's for the public and the record later on.
Okay, that's just my.
And then, so we would change the next part to say that council request that the mayor send a letter under the mayor's signature, not the instead, I guess, that a letter be sent to the Minister of Finance under the mayor's signature advising you don't want to give them the original resolution?
I don't think they need to.
Well, we'd asked, we were going to
I
ask.
think it's important to state our position on the thing.
Well, that's why I'm saying send the first paragraph.
Yeah.
They don't need to know that we've spent time in a meeting rescinding the.
No,
No, no,
we're
no,
not
no, no,
rescinding
no.
anything, but we want them to know that we didn't want the tax, and if they were gonna proceed with the tax, we didn't want to be included.
Then I wouldn't rescind the original.
I'm not,
We're not.
I'm not
We're not.
moving to rescind the original motion. My motion doesn't rescind anything.
I think not everybody has the piece of paper in front
I
of them.
know,
so-
I was hoping Sophie could pop it up on the screen. I can send it to you, everybody.
Well, it's a very, very convoluted statement.
Okay, how about we go again? Whereas at its meeting of March 26th, council passed resolution 18-135, don't forget about putting it in. And whereas the Minister of Finance in the afternoon of March 26th announced changes to the proposed speculation tax that exempted Lone Island, that council request the mayor to now send a letter to the Minister of Finance under the mayor's signature, quoting resolution 18-135, and thanking the minister for the announced change to the proposed speculation tax to exempt Bowen Island.
Okay, so first of all, we have a process issue where the mayor's brought forward this resolution for reconsideration. So I think we need to deal with that.
So I'll move that we not reconsider resolution 18-135.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor of that? Okay, so we are not rescinding that. Okay, so now the further motion is what?
So, I'll read this again, and I move.
Well, can you change it to that a letter be sent over the mayor's signature?
That's what I
As
said.
opposed to the mayor sending a letter.
I never said that, if you listen to what I said. In the first
Okay.
place, the letter says, a letter be sent to the Minister of Finance under the mayor's signature. Or is it over the mayor's signature, is that the right word?
I think it's under.
I think it is too. Under the mayor's signature, advising that advising of resolution 18-135, and thanking the minister for the announced change to the proposed speculation tax to exempt Bowen.
Okay, we have a seconder for that.
So, you take the whole resolution?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Any more discussion before I call the question? Okay, all those in favor? Those opposed? And if so noted? Or is it, are you opposed?
I'm in favor.
Okay. I am the only one. Are you opposed as well?
Yes, oh my God, it's a first.
World's upside down.
In front of the school. Okay.
Of course, in the original, you were going to send us a draft, but I dare be asked that now. Because this horse is rapidly looking like the committee camel, so let's hope it works out all right.
We're on to 10.1.
Okay, so 9.1 is gone. 10.1, Metro Vancouver.
There's nothing to report from meetings. We haven't met since our last council meeting, although there certainly has been lots on the news regarding the proposed salary increase and retroactive pay for directors. Greg Moore is going to be bringing forward a resolution to reconsider that at the next Metro Board meeting. There were 8 of us, at least, who voted in opposition to the original motions.
8 out of how many?
I'm not certain because it wasn't full attendance. It might
Rough
have been
number.
35.
Okay.
Yeah. So the acting mayor of West Van, myself, Maria Harris, from electoral area A, Richard Walton, and 2 alternate directors from POCO were opposed.
Okay.
That was lively. Are there any questions about that, actually?
When is the next meeting? What's the date so we can tune into CKNW to get it right?
Well, you can watch it live on the channel on
Yeah, it is live streamed.
Metro website.
I'll try and give my...
Give me some hints for your eyes.
It's live streamed and archived. It's on the 27th of April, and then just by the way, there's a Council of Councils meeting on the 28th of April.
There it is.
And I'm not sure where that is yet. I haven't seen the announcement.
I thought they said
They did tell us where it was.
Yeah, I don't recall.
Richmond.
Richmond.
Yeah, I think so.
Senior Richmond.
Um,
And that's my report.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Iron Express report.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I could report, just that they're in 1217 in the information items is the Islands Trust Freshwater Forum. And this is a meeting that happened March 20, I don't know when it was, last month, that I went to over in Cowichan Bay. So the Islands Trust brought a number of people together to talk about issues of will there be enough water? What's the quality of water? How do we manage water on the Gulf Islands in an era of climate change? So that was really interesting, and I've brought information back, and I can, when I figure out who to give it to, I will give it away, or anybody can contact me. And then in the 10.3, which is the next issue on the agenda, there's some information there, an email from Claire Frater, who's the Director of Trust Area Services all over the Trust area, and she's our main contact here on Bowen, and it outlines exactly the steps that Islands Trust took back in the summer when BC Timber Sales told us that they were coming to hold a public meeting. So the Islands Trust took a whole bunch of steps. It's the last page in that report in 10.3, and I'll talk about it in 10.3. But just to let people know that they did take action, and it's documented there to preserve and protect.
Okay. Anything to add, Allison?
No.
Okay, so on to 10.3. Councillor Fast.
Okay, well, I've got a little report in the agenda there. Basically, I'm asking the short recommendation that's there, that council endorses and encourages initiatives to prevent industrial logging on Bowen Island Crown lands. That's the first part of the recommendation, and that relates to other parties getting involved, and that we encourage that. This could be the Islands Trust, as I've just talked about. It could be Metro Vancouver, as we passed a motion at the last meeting. It could be young people in our community who started an online petition. It could be all the people who've done all kinds of things in the community already and written letters. Or it could be the community group Defend Island Forests. So I've included them in there as the second group, including the efforts of Defend Island Forests, just to strengthen them in their effectiveness with their upcoming meeting with the chair of the Metro Vancouver Parks Committee. And the work that they're doing, collecting information, and this is their report that they presented to us back before Christmas, and all the work that they're doing. I just think it might help strengthen their position. So I've got this proposal, this recommendation in front of me.
Okay.
I'm curious as to why the resolution is different from the notice of motion resolution, and I don't know whether from a process perspective, whether that's,
I would say the intent of the resolutions the same.
okay.
I will say what I did is I looked back at some of the other resolutions we passed, and the wording endorses and encourages was the wording that we used in the glass sponge wording that we passed back in November 24th, and that came out of the Howe Sound Forum, that council endorses and supports initiatives to protect and preserve glass sponge reefs in that case. So I went with something that I thought council would be comfortable with and that we passed before. Having had the time to work on it, which is why it was deferred.
Okay, that council endorses and encourages the initiatives to prevent industrial logging on Bowen Island Crown lands, including the efforts of Defend Island Forests.
Why wouldn't they be included?
Does it say nothing or does it say too much? You know, it's a very, very open-ended, very simple statement. And I don't know what it would be used for, as much as what it says. What is the need for it, Sue?
The purpose is to communicate its endorsement of initiatives, the council's endorsement of initiatives by other parties to prevent logging on Crown lands and to assist Defend Island Forests in being effective in their work.
Why?
Yeah, that's the...
Because they've got a meeting coming up with Metro Vancouver Parks Board Chair, at which they're going to present the slideshow, which is also in our agenda. A draft of it anyway is somewhere here in the agenda. And I think, there it is, 12.15. And the Councillor Nicholson's letter to Metro Vancouver Park staff is also in our agenda, 12.18. And I think since the letter and the meeting are set up, that this just encourages Defend Island Forests to present and encourages Metro Vancouver to hear them with the endorsement of Bowen Island Council.
But then we should be endorsing the specific presentation and your specific proposal, because it sounds like that's what you're wanting this resolution to do. And I don't know without I didn't realize until I quickly printed off the agenda item that it was on the basis of Defend Our Forests. I thought it was David Hawking personally that was making the presentation. So I'm still not really understanding why we need to do it. I mean, I'd be happier with a resolution that said, council's grateful for the work that organizations on the island are doing to assist council in its efforts to prevent industrial logging on Bowen Island, and encourages them to continue to support us. But
I'd also point out that on table, we've got letters A to Q supporting the resolution.
Okay, I'm going to go to Melanie.
I forgot to mention it.
I like the sound of Councillor Morris's proposal, proposal, but also to speak to Councillor Fast's intent here. If the intent is to endorse the work that the Defend Islands Force, I think we should just make it directly tied to that. So, do you want to move this resolution, and then maybe we could make an amendment to it?
Sure, I move that council endorses and encourage initiatives to prevent industrial logging on Bowen Island town lands, including the efforts of Defend Island Forests.
So I'll second that, so we can start discussion and amendments.
Okay. Go ahead, Maureen.
I won't be supporting the recommendation. I think it's too open-ended. There could be any sort of initiative that was to come up on the part of Defend Island Forests or another community organization. I don't think that a council should make a commitment in advance to whatever comes up that's associated with defending Island Forests. The second thing is that groups, loose organizations like Defend Island Forests, and before that, all sorts of loose organizations on Bowen Island, like Stop the Dogs, or like the Bowen Islanders for Fairy Fairness, and there's a big long list. Part of the power of those groups has to do with the fact that they're outside of the context of a municipal government and the endorsement of a municipal government. They are able to do things that we cannot do as a council. They can be in people's face. They can be passionately vocal. They can mobilize in ways that would look a little peculiar for a local government to engage in. The functions of an organization like Defend Island Forests and like a local government are really, really very different. I don't think, and I'm remembering back with Biff, when we were encouraged quietly by the council at the time to attend a protest over in Horseshoe Bay, and we were encouraged quietly to do that because we did have that latitude in terms of the behavior that we could demonstrate. So I think it actually, this kind of resolution, in some respects, fetters organizations like Defend Island Forests and also fetters us in a way that is not helpful in terms of the passion and the function of the group itself. And then the third point, the strengthening Defend Island Forests and the effectiveness in meeting with the chair of Metro Parks. I don't think that's necessary. I think that Metro Parks is very welcoming to delegations and will listen to them. And I don't see the potential outcome of strengthening the position of Defend Island Forests and having that conversation, because any conversation that is going to take place regarding Crown lands is going to take place at the level of government.
Yes.
It's going to be between local government, the provincial government, representatives of Crown lands. It'll be government to government, or it'll be staff to staff. It will not be Metro Vancouver and Defend Island Forests. And if we were to put Defend Island Forests into a position where they were assuming a negotiating role, which sounds like what's going on here, I think that is inappropriate delegation of council authority. And for those reasons, I won't be supporting this resolution, much as I appreciate and respect and value the work that Defend Island Forests and other organizations did last summer.
You know.
And I'll come back in a second, so I just once I've been reading this expanding Crippen Park thing. What a nice presentation. I have to hand it to you guys. You do a hell of a job there. And we certainly value the work that Defend Island Forest does. But as Maureen points out, I agree too that it's not proper or correct to link municipal council. We would then have to vet everything that you do if you are speaking for us. Yeah. Or we may find ourselves in a position one day where we don't agree with a position taken or something done. And then we've got a resolution sitting there saying that we were supporting it, giving blanket support up front. Or an endorsement of actions to be taken. So I'm not trying to in any way curtail what Defend Island Forest does, but I just can't see how a municipal council responsibly can link themselves, just as we couldn't to any of the other groups. So back to you, Sue.
Well, thank you. I'm hearing our Metro Vancouver Parks committee member and Metro Vancouver director say that she doesn't think it would help. I'm listening to that, and I'm.
Can I just? I don't think it would help in terms of affecting the outcome of the meeting.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm also thinking about the fact that the Minister of Forests has made some statements in the, well, you'll see it in the document here, but on March 15th, our MLA, Jordan Sturdy, asked some questions in the Committee of Supply, I believe it was, about forest supply, and MLA Jordan Sturdy requested that Bowen be removed from industrial logging. And we know that Islands Trust and Defend Island Forest have been taking steps to also, so we've got our MLA, Defend Island Forest, Islands Trust so far, now Metro Vancouver. My part of my motion here is maybe I could just take out the word endorses and then it just says that council encourages initiatives to prevent industrial logging on Bowen Island Crown lands. Something like that. I'm just interested in getting more people around the table and involved in the discussion because the minister says that he intends to reopen discussion about logging on Bowen, and you can read the rest of his words down here in the transcript. So I'm thinking the more people we have around the table, the better, and it might be other levels of government as well.
Okay, I just want to address that first thing up with Melanie. I spoke with Jordan ahead of time before he raised it in the Finance Committee. He used the documentation provided by Defend Island Forests very effectively and was very thankful for it. But it certainly was, I mean, that was the procedure. I talked to him, he took it forward, the minister responded to him. I am personally happy with the minister's response because I have been in conversation with senior Flynn Row people and I know the subtext of it and the discussions with BC Timber Sales, and I will be bringing a report forward to council on things that have happened to date on it, but it is ongoing and slow moving. And so that is the level that we deal at. And it's just different than what the sort of work that an advocacy group, a citizens advocacy group would do. It's just a different take on it. But I'm going to go to Melanie now and then to Allison.
You've answered it. It was what was your response to the minister's comment? Right. So you've mentioned you'll be bringing back a report to council. Would that be a written report?
Sure. Yeah, it'll be the emails that have transpired back and forth and summaries of meetings and so on. Yes.
Because I think it's really good. It's going to be important now to document how this progresses, yes. Especially if we're going to have this might go into the next term, and so to be able to pass that torch on to,
yes.
Have it well documented of what's been going on.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Allison, did you want to?
Well, I totally agree with everything that Councillor expect them to come to staff or to council before they start their public engagement process. We shouldn't be delegating the authority to run the public engagement process to somebody else until we have met with them. So I think it's government to government. And I'm fully appreciative of all the work that Defender Force has done, and they've got an excellent PowerPoint presentation. We've written a letter to say that we're supportive of expanding Crippa Park into the Crown Lands, so I can't support the resolution.
Well, hearing what our Metro Vancouver director has said and everybody's comments, I'm happy to take this down, partly because I'm hearing that we're going to bring a report forward to council, and we as a council now have had a chance to discuss it a little bit, and that makes me more comfortable as well.
To that extent, I think this has been useful, but I have to endorse the other points. That this right now, prior to receiving anything substantive from the mayor in view of all the conversations that are going on, is probably inappropriate. It doesn't work. And let's hold back on anything like this. And it has to, council cannot delegate this type of responsibility to groups such as this. That's just a fact.
Okay, I withdraw the motion.
Just process-wise, if we could get the seconder to also agree to the withdrawal.
Okay, I'll withdraw.
Maureen had a statement.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, Sue Ellen commented on item 12.18, which is the letter to Mike Redpath. For members of the public who might not have taken a look at that, it's a letter to the director of Metro Vancouver Regional Parks, and it passes on the resolution that we passed at our last meeting, which is, it does not come out and say, well, I'll read the resolution. Whereas Metro Vancouver Regional Parks is proceeding with its parks acquisition strategy, which is something that's been in the works for quite a long time, and for the most part is discussed in closed meetings at Metro Parks, so I'm not at liberty to go into a lot of detail. Bowen Island Municipal Council formally confirms its expressed interest in exploring options with regional parks for the potential expansion of Kirkland Regional Park to include some or all of the Crown Lands on Bowen Island. That resolution was written really carefully in terms of the qualifiers, you know, that we are expressing our interest, that we want to explore options, that we're talking about potential expansion. And that's the kind of language that Metro responds to when it comes to discussions of park expansion. The pace that they go at, the process that they use, and the players that are involved, they're really clear on those three elements. And my concern about, one of my concerns about the proposed resolution here is just kind of alarming them, because they are comfortable with their current process.
This is partly why I'm withdrawing it, and I could also point out that when I was drafting this motion, I hadn't seen your letter.
Yeah,
So,
fair enough.
because the agenda hadn't been published yet. And, you know, just, so this was an effort to have this conversation, to make sure that we were on the right path with involving people. And like I said, now I know, I've heard from people, I'm happy to withdraw the motion and look forward to receiving your report.
Right. And I almost did it until the Hansard thing came out, and I thought, oh, this changes it again. The Hansard is the
Right, oh, this-
publication of the
The transcript of the discussion
Yeah.
at the legislature.
Right. Okay, before I adjourn,
Just one more point. A lot of the letters, there are a lot of really passionate letters in the agenda package that came in over the last while. And one of the letters kind of struck home for me, that the person writing it said, do the right thing. And I thought, we don't need to be told to do the right thing. And I just really want to make sure that people hear that the industrial scale logging is a genuine concern for this council.
and yeah, we couldn't be more clear on this subject. We absolutely couldn't be more clear on it. That we're totally and completely opposed to it, and it's never going to happen on Bowen. That's about it. So, on that note, we are
We didn't
adjourned.
remove anything from the consent?
No, we didn't.
We didn't. We are adjourned.
No, we're not. Council can do it.
We have to go back to our
Darn, I'm
Good try.
sorry.